improve the identification of Indigenous American skeletons in forensic contexts to speed the return to the families. So after hearing what Dr. Rodriguez does and how she sometimes has to consult with you, could you tell us a little bit about what your role is as a forensic anthropologist in cases where there may have been skeletonized remains?
Absolutely. Thank you all for taking some time to listen to us today. I hope that answering these questions will be helpful to you. So a forensic anthropologist is somebody who's a specialist in human skeletal remains, and we are called in by the forensic pathologists when cases are decomposed to the point where a traditional autopsy will not provide the information that's necessary. We are specialists in getting a couple of different kinds of information from the skeleton. One of these is what we call the bioprofile, and that is estimating a bunch of characteristics about somebody from their skeleton. So of course, you can't look at their face, you don't know who they are, so we need to figure out some basic characteristics about the person. And by looking at the skeleton, I can estimate whether they were a man or a woman. I can estimate how old they were. I can estimate how tall they were. And I can estimate which population they came from. Were they black or white? Were they Native American? Were they Hispanic? Were they Asian? And hopefully maybe do a little bit better job than that. So those are the kinds of things that forensic anthropologists are good at. We're also called in when there's trauma to the skeleton to explain that, and then sometimes also with the excavation of remains. So if your remains are buried anywhere in the state of New Mexico, my team and I come out to excavate.
This is obviously very important to the families, law enforcement, and those of us whose goal is to identify the person, right? So with that said, how is OMI Anthropology Department working to improve identification of Indigenous decedents?
Sure, so for many, many reasons, Native Americans have a lot of distrust of anthropologists. And there's a long history of relationships, both good and bad, between those two groups of people. And so for that reason, anthropologists are missing a set of information that relates to contemporary Native Americans. All those things I just said we're going to estimate, we find really challenging to estimate about Native Americans because we don't have the background data that we need to compare an unknown individual to. And so we're very fortunate at OMI to have received a grant from the National Institute of Justice to address this issue head on. And what we're doing is collecting data from autopsies that have already happened at the Office of the Medical Investigator over the last 15 years to improve that database. And we hope that this will improve our ability to do two things specifically. One is estimate stature. We use a fancy equation to estimate how tall somebody is, and we don't have an equation for Native Americans. And then we also don't have a good understanding about population affinity. So we're working very hard to create that information now that we hope that will help in New Mexico, but actually in the country as a whole.
We appreciate your services and your expertise, Dr. Thank you very much. I'm sure there's a delicate balance between learning from the deceased and providing the utmost professional services and respect. With this in mind, what does OMI Anthropology do to be respectful to Indigenous decedents? And either one of you all are welcome to answer.
And we may both have something to say about that, or not. So I think our first step in respect is to do our best to identify human bodies as fast as possible and return them to families as fast as possible. That's the first thing that we can do. be respectful. Beyond that, we understand the sensitivity of the physical remains. I hope we understand that sensitivity. And so, of course, we treat all remains with the utmost respect. Additionally, the data that I talked about collecting for this new project, it's coming from images, from 3D CT scans. And this way, we don't have to maintain collections of skeletons. We don't have to go back and touch skeletons over and over and over. Instead, we work from 3D images virtually. And we hope that this is considered more respectful.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. I'd like to introduce Cassandra Toledo. Cassandra is a member of the Jemez Pueblo and also the Oglala Lakota Sioux Nation. She's been an employee with the Office of the Medical Investigator since 2016 when she started as a morphology technician. Then she became a field deputy in Sandoval County. And now she's a deputy medical investigator and has been for about 3 years. She has a passion for her community and to serve the community, and she strives to build a better relationship with all Native American communities in the Southwest and the Office of the Medical Investigator. So thank you very much for coming today, Cassandra. Can you tell the group here what you do as an investigator with the Office of the Medical Investigator?
So our job as an investigator is to process the scene of any person who has been declared deceased, to try to determine a cause and manner of death, to help our pathologists collect information, whether it's fingerprints, any type of viable evidence needed to tell the story. As we say in our office, we're the storytellers of the deceased individuals, and we're trying to help the families figure out what happened exactly to their loved ones. And that's where I think all of us in our office are very passionate about. We have the families at heart that we work on.
Can you describe how you handle unidentified individuals? For example, you're called out to a scene and you don't know who the person is. How do you handle that?
So our first step, it just depends on the condition of the individual who is deceased. If they are still, viewable, we'll try to work with local law enforcement agencies to try to get any type of tentative ID. When they come to our office, if they're unidentified as a true John or Jane Doe, we'll fingerprint them, send them to the FBI. If we get a hit, that's great. We'll notify the law enforcement agency, who will then help us contact the legal next of kin in that case. If we do not have any hits with the fingerprints, then we will work with local law enforcement again. If we do have a tentative ID, then we work with them to obtain any type of swabs from the family members for DNA. If that's not the case, then we go through dental records and we look at their postmortem CT with our forensic odontologist or with the help of Dr. Everett or Dr. Ellifritz to try to identify these individuals skeletally.
What about in the case where OMI has information about a missing individual? What can you do with that information without having the missing individual there at OMI?
So we've developed a new, on our website, it's a missing persons report system. We do have some members of our Decedent Affairs department here as well who head that project. Any family who has any missing loved ones or relatives are encouraged to go to visit our website, enter any type of information, whether it's descriptive, their height, their age, their weight, any type of physical features that can help us identify them. If an unidentified individual does come into our office and we cannot identify them through fingerprints, what our Decedent Affairs employees do is they compare what we have on our website to what we have at the office to make the comparison and see if that could possibly be a tentative identification for this individual.
Thank you very much for that information. We're running out of time here, so what I'd like to do is introduce Jennifer Otto. She's at the back of the room. Could you please stand, Jenny? Jenny and I work about 10 feet from each other at the Forensic Lab in Santa Fe. Jenny is the technical leader and supervisor of the DNA unit, and she has about 20 years of experience in forensics. So Jenny will be here at the table where we are going to be collecting DNA. I wanted to let you know that we are all available to answer any of your questions, so feel free to stop by at any point today. Actually, we probably will be here for about 2 hours after the break. So if you could do that within the 2-hour time frame, that would be great. Thank you very much, and I am very honored to be here with you today. I hope you have a very productive day here at Missing in New Mexico.
Let's give another round of applause and thank you for the panel for being here, for your service to New Mexico and our loved ones. All right, friends, so we're going to start shifting gears a little bit. We're going to do about 20 minutes.
Hey, I'm Pueblo
So
in
that way all of the people who are here to
02.
support and provide resources
Yeah.
have a place to
Oh
be.
really? Yeah, I lived there 20 years in Pine Ridge.
Yeah, my dad's from Pine Ridge, so I'm related to the Ghost and Red Oak family.
Oh, I'm a Sunquin from Laguna that got adopted out and came back, but that's why I'm talking with a southern accent. Nice to meet you.
I know many people may want to talk to the Attorney General, but we really want to prioritize families who have missing loved ones to have some time with the Attorney General. So he'll be in Chapel 3. It's right across the hall, kind of tucked back to the right.